Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a primary school teacher from the UK. I am passionate about supporting teachers find a work-life balance and to become the best teachers that they can be. Today, I'm going to be diving into some of the questions that you might be asked in a primary teaching interview. One thing to remember is that I cannot list all of the questions that may possibly come up. I'm just speaking from my own experiences and from fellow teachers that I have spoken to who have recently been a part of that interview process. Now, I remember my very first ECT, well, it was NQT at the time, but ECT interview, and I was so nervous. I qualified during the first kind of original COVID year, so I didn't even have a formal proper interview. It was all done online. The traditional kind of setup that you'll see for formal kind of interviews will be a lesson observation. Some schools do this on the same day as the formal interview. Other schools do this differently, but the most common way that I've seen this done is a formal lesson observation and a teaching interview. Now, the interview may be led by a range of people. Typically, you'll have the head teacher there, possibly a governor, but this will look very different depending on what school you are applying to. A top tip if you are having to teach a lesson observation, particularly if you are an ECT and you have just qualified, is keep it as simple as possible. Teach a lesson that you have taught before so you can draw upon your own experience. You know it went well, you're going to feel a lot more confident going into it because you have done it before. Keep it simple. What they are looking for is that you are able to articulate the purpose of the lesson. Keep in mind, what do you want the children to be able to achieve by the end of the lesson? And that is what you need to keep going back to. Do not overcomplicate it. I know how easy it is to fall into the trap of wanting to make, a really big, exciting lesson, but a lot of the time, this will lead to you not feeling as confident for it. So I would advise to stick to what you know, stick to the bread and the butter. What do you want the children to be able to do by the end of the lesson? Also, ask the school about the class that you are going to be going into. Is there any specific needs that you need to be aware of? Will the children have their names on them so you can directly ask them by their name? Lots of different types of questions that you can ask to show that you are interested and also shows that you care about the learners that you are going to be going into to support. Another tip to remember is always go and visit the school first. Every single school is completely different and all schools really do have a different feel, and you need to make sure that the school that you are applying to aligns with your values and aligns with your morals and what you are looking for in a school. Some people might prefer, a really big inner city school where there's lots of different teachers to work with in a team to kind of bounce ideas off. Other teachers much prefer the idea of a small, quaint, little village school where, it's one form entry. So really go and visit the school. When you are there, ask lots of questions. Ask about the displays that you see. Do your research. Bring up things that you have seen on their school website. Ask them about different schemes that they use, different topics that they teach. Really seem interested in that one specific school. Now, the school know that, of course, especially as an ECT, you're going to be going and looking at lots of different schools because you just want a job. Really do show that you put in the effort by going and visiting the school and asking those questions. I'm now going to go through some of the common interview questions and some possible answers that you could use when you go into your teaching interview. I would highly recommend practicing some of these answers, maybe with your fellow teacher trainer friends. If you are a qualified teacher, this might be with current colleagues or friends. Just practice and, make some notes. I'm sure that, the schools that you're applying to would not have a problem with you taking in notes if you need to. And when I am answering questions, I always remember to do a point, evidence, and impact. So answer the questions with your point. What is your point? How are you answering the questions? What's the main point that you are making? Then your evidence. Where have you shown this within the classroom? Draw upon your placement experience. Draw upon your years of being in a classroom if you are a more experienced teacher. And then the impact. What impact did that have on the children and on the children's learning? And I'll give you some examples of that as we go through. A typical question that you might be asked to begin with is, why did you want to be a teacher? Or tell me about yourself. The tell me about yourself might seem a little bit daunting because it seems really broad, but you don't want to be going off on a tangent and telling them your life story. You want to try and keep it brief. So I would give them a little bit of information about yourself, why you wanted to become a teacher, and then possibly where you went to university and what route you took. But I would try and keep it as brief as you can and link it as much as you can to education. It's very common for schools to also ask, why did you apply here at our school? And this links into the point that I was making earlier. You really want to do your research before. So have a look at the school website, look at their Ofsted report. I wouldn't bring up their Ofsted report, but it's good to do research so you know what the school are developing in and what their areas of strength are. You really need to express a passion and an eagerness for that specific school. Why do you want to work there? And prepare an answer in your head after you have done your research. Maybe they have a really fantastic, exciting, engaging curriculum. Maybe they put on really exciting clubs. Maybe they have a really positive behaviour policy that your morals and your values align to. So prepare a specific response for that, because it is highly likely that they will ask you why you want to work at their school. It's very common to be asked about a lesson, a specific lesson. So they might ask you, tell me about a really good lesson that you've taught, and this could be as an experienced teacher or as an ECT. Always have an example up your sleeve. So think about a really good placement lesson that you taught, a really good lesson that you've taught within the classroom if you have more experience. Maybe it was a really engaging and exciting activity. All of the children made progress. Talk about those cross-curricular links. Maybe you planned a really exciting DT lesson that coincided with your science topic or your geography topic. So really show that enthusiasm about your teaching and about your practice. If I walked into your classroom, what would I expect to see? Now, this doesn't just mean the physical layout. So you might have, a calming, welcoming, warming environment. This means the students. So you would expect to see the students on task. You would expect to see the students engaged in their learning and making progress in whatever task that they are doing. You would also expect to see different layers of challenge and also scaffolds in place for those students who may need them, and adaptive teaching where required. You might also expect to see student discussions and collaboration and real engagement and involvement within the learning. It's very common to receive questions about behaviour management, particularly as an ECT. And my biggest top tip would be to keep it simple. Go back to clear expectations and routines that you will embed continually within your classroom. Also highlight the positive relationships built on mutual respect that you will have with your students to support with your behaviour management, and how those relationships are at the core of everything that you do within the classroom. How do you ensure all students are making progress within your lessons? And I received this question when I had my first interview, and I made sure to highlight that assessment is an ongoing process continually within the classroom. It helps me monitor my students' progress, and also helps to inform my future planning and my future lessons. This can be done through summative assessments and also formative assessments. So that just means a summative assessment is kind of like an end of lesson or an end of topic assessment that you can then use that information to support specific students who need it or to inform your future planning. And summative assessment would be before, so it lets you know where there might be gaps and where you need to focus your teaching and your planning. The formative and summative assessments could take place through quizzes, through exercises, through formal assessments, and also the day-to-day observations and speaking to your students through their books, through your conversations, through your guided groups, through working one-on-one. All of those different ways help you to know where your students are and what you need to put in place to be able to monitor their progress and assessment. It then allows you to make that targeted support for each individual child to ensure that they are all achieving those learning outcomes. It's highly likely that you will face some form of weakness-based question. So that could take form of, tell me about a lesson that didn't go well or didn't go to plan, or tell me about a specific weakness of yours. Definitely have something pre-prepared for this, because it is a challenging question. Show though that even though it might be a weakness, you are taking actionable steps to overcome that, and that you are working hard on that to improve as a practitioner and to improve your teacher practice. It is also common to be asked about how you would work with maybe colleagues or in particular support staff. Now, I know as an ECT, getting thrown into a classroom, and a lot of the time you will be working with support staff and members of the team, some who are a lot more experienced than you, and I definitely found that daunting as a new teacher. I think working with support staff always comes back down to successful and clear communication. As a teacher, you need to be communicating with your support staff and with the people around you about the lesson content, what you want the students to achieve by the end of the lesson, and to be direct with the specific students that you are focusing for whatever reason that may be, through your summative assessment, through your formative assessment, or just your day-to-day monitoring. It's giving constant and clear direction so that everyone in the room is aware of what you are trying to achieve. And organisation. If there are resources that you want your teaching assistant to use with students, have them pre-prepared, and don't just give the resources to them, show them the best way to use those resources with the students to get the best results. And finally, you will always at the end of an interview receive a question that says, do you have any questions? Now, I know that at the end of an interview, you're exhausted, you're kind of high on those nerves, and you just want to say, no, I have no questions, I'm done, thank you very much. But it's really important that you do at least ask something. I would refrain from any questions about money or anything like that, and that should already be on the application. I know when I had my first interview, I asked my head teacher if I were to ask a member of staff what they loved the most about working here, what do you think they would say? And she really loved that question. So it's having a question up your sleeve that you can impress them with, that they're going to remember you by. And that is the end of the common interview questions that you could get as a primary school teacher. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you found it useful. If you do have any other questions or comments regarding anything that I've spoken about today, please do leave a comment, and I will get back to you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching.